I just saw this video the other day, which says that it only takes 2 minutes to eat 1,000 calories, but it takes over 2 hours to burn off 1,000 calories. Thankfully, that's not how fat loss really works. In fact, trying to burn off every single calorie that you eat through exercise is the fastest way to ruin your relationship with food and your body, and it's also the fastest way to ensure that you're not gonna achieve your fat loss goals long term. And in this video, I'm gonna break down how your body actually burns calories, why exercise isn't as important as you think it is for fat loss specifically, and how to approach fat loss in a way that's actually sustainable, effective, and a lot less stressful. Let's go ahead and get into it. What's up, guys? I hope you're all having an absolutely wonderful day today. On this episode, I want to talk about a really important topic that I feel like people get really confused about. And that is how our bodies actually burn calories and what components of our energy expenditure, right? Energy expenditure just being like how many calories you burn on any given day. What components of our energy expenditure actually contribute to the majority of the calories that we burn, and how we can use that to successfully lose fat if that's our goal, or just maintain a healthy body composition or whatnot, right? And the reason why I want to talk about this, guys, is because I've been seeing these videos circulating on social media that have really been annoying me. And I understand why they've been circulating. They're really catchy and they're entertaining. They're like short little clips. And the first clip is a video of somebody eating a certain food. And it says something like, eat X number of calories in like 2 minutes. Let's say they're eating a donut and it says eating 1,000 calories in 2 minutes. And then the next clip will be them doing a bunch of cardio. And it'll say something like, burning 1,000 calories in 2 hours, right? And the whole purpose is to show that like it only really takes a few seconds to eat a bunch of calories from junk food, and it takes a lot of time to burn those calories off through exercise. And there's some inklings of truth in that sort of message, and then the vast majority of it is incorrect. In the sense that it does take a really long time to burn off 1,000 calories through exercise, but that's simply because exercise actually isn't a really efficient way of burning calories, right? The part that is incorrect is this idea that you have to do a ton of exercise to burn off calories if you're trying to lose weight. And that's why it's not a good idea to overeat calories from junk food or anything like that, which I agree with. We shouldn't be eating a ton of calories from junk food, but I don't agree with this idea that you have to do a bunch of calories or you have to do a bunch of cardio to burn off the excess calories or the calories in general that you eat from exercise. And I think that sort of messaging can actually have a pretty negative impact on our psychology and our relationship with exercise, as viewing exercise as almost this thing that's punishment for bad eating behaviors or bad eating habits, which shouldn't be the case at all, right? I feel like exercise is something that we should do as celebration, as something that positively contributes to our health, as something that makes us feel good, not as punishment for food. So what I want to do, again, is break down how our bodies actually burn calories, explain the different components and how they contribute to your energy expenditure, talk about the most optimal way to actually lose fat and stay lean, and then also obviously explain why you don't have to out-exercise or exercise to burn off every single calorie that you eat. Now, before we get started, guys, if you are a regular listener of the podcast, I only have one really small ask of you, and that is that you take a second to rate the podcast and leave me a review. It really does help me a ton, and it's the main way that this podcast grows, through word of mouth, right? So leave a review, rate the podcast, share it with a friend if you think it'll be useful. It really means the world to me. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing we need to define is the term total daily energy expenditure, which is simply the number of calories that our body burns on any given day, right? So if you burn 3,000 calories, your total daily energy expenditure is 3,000 calories. Now, those 3,000 calories that you burn are not primarily through exercise, right? There are different components of our energy expenditure that contribute a different amount to how many calories we burn. First and foremost, we have our BMR, which is our basal metabolic rate. So when people talk about their metabolism or their metabolic rate, if they're like, my metabolism is broken, they're typically referring to their BMR, right? And our basal metabolic rate accounts for the largest percentage of our energy expenditure. In general, our BMR accounts for 60 to 70% of the calories that we burn on any given day. And your BMR is simply the number of calories that your body needs to stay alive, right? So, for example, you need to maintain core body temperature, right? You need to maintain your organs functioning correctly. All of these different activities, maintaining reproductive function, all of these activities that are physiological processes that your body requires in order to survive and stay alive fall under the category of our basal metabolic rate. Okay? And again, it accounts for 60 to 70% of the calories that we burn on any given day. So if my math is correct, if you burn 3,000 calories on any given day, 1,800 calories to 2,100 calories are accounted for by your BMR, right? And you burn those calories without any physical activity. So literally just sitting around, you are burning those calories, right? And that's because, again, our bodies require energy to stay alive. All of those processes that I talked about, whether it's maintaining your core body temperature, or whether it's keeping your organs functioning, your brain, your liver, those things require energy. So we're burning calories while those processes are happening. The next category is the thermic effect of food, or TEF. And this is simply the number of calories that your body uses to actually metabolize and digest food, okay? And that accounts for anywhere between 10 to 15% of our total daily energy expenditure. So that would be another 300 to 500 calories if your total daily energy expenditure is, around 3,000 calories. So again, when we eat food, it's not like we just absorb those calories passively. It's an active process, right? Our bodies need to break down the food, be able to absorb the individual nutrients, metabolize those nutrients, produce ATP, which is how we, produce energy. All of those processes require energy. They require calories. So we actually burn calories while we are digesting and metabolizing food. And this number, 10 to 15%, it can vary depending on the composition of your diet. In general, foods that are like whole foods and protein and fiber rich foods are going to have a higher thermic effect because they take more energy to actually break down and metabolize them. And simple carbohydrates and highly processed foods require less because they're just like pre-digested essentially, and it's easier to break them down and absorb them. But in general, you are burning around 10 to 15% of your total calories just digesting and metabolizing food. Next, we have NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And this is the number of calories that you burn just by moving throughout the day that's not intentional exercise, right? So if you're listening to this podcast, you're not watching me. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can tell my head is moving, my lips are moving, my hands are moving when I'm talking, I'm very animated. All of those things require energy, but that's not intentional exercise, right? That is movement outside of intentional exercise. So any sort of fidgeting, walking, like getting up from bed, going to the bathroom, like all these little things require energy. And in general, our non-exercise activity thermogenesis burns anywhere between 15 to 20% of our total daily calories. So again, if we were talking about 3,000 calories per day, that could be anywhere from 450 to 600 calories being burned just through non-exercise movement, right? Fidgeting, again, literally any sort of movement that's not exercise. I feel like that's self-explanatory. And then the last category is exercise activity thermogenesis, which is the number of calories that we burn through intentional exercise. And on average, that only accounts for 5 to 10% of the daily calories that you burn. Obviously, this number is going to vary drastically depending on how physically active you are and how much you exercise. But for most people, it's 5 to 10%. And let's say you're really, really active and it's like 15% or maybe 20% if you're extremely active. It's not the vast majority of the calories that you burn on any given day. I think it's really important to emphasize how little exercise actually contributes to the total daily calories that we burn, right? Like you literally burn more calories by digesting and metabolizing food than you do by doing intentional exercise. And I just say that because, again, it just relates to the message that I said at the beginning, right? Of like this whole idea that if you eat food, if you eat 1,000 calories, now you have to do a bunch of exercise to burn off those calories. That simply isn't true, right? And if you burn 3,000 calories on any given day, if you're consuming lower than those 3,000 calories, even if it's coming from junk food, in theory, you don't have to do additional exercise to burn additional calories, right? Now, there's a whole host of other things. If you're eating a ton of junk food, it's unlikely that you're staying in a calorie deficit because it's harder because you're not really going to feel full and you're going to have cravings and all of these other things that I talk about really often. But in theory, as long as you're within your caloric limit, it's all good. You don't have to do a bunch of exercise to burn that off. And really seeing exercise as a means to burn off calories from food is a flawed mindset. And it's just going to lead you to failure because if we look at the numbers, it's just really hard to exercise enough to burn off additional calories. And that's why fat loss is primarily driven through dietary modification. Now, that doesn't mean that exercise is not important. Obviously, exercise is incredibly important, right? But it's not the most useful tool for weight loss specifically. Exercise is really important for your health because it has unique health benefits. It's really important for keeping you strong. It's really important for building muscle mass. Exercise also has really beneficial effects on regulating hunger and satiety. There's really good data showing that regular exercise helps regulate things like ghrelin and leptin and GLP-1, which are all different hormones associated with hunger regulation. So exercise is good in many, many, many ways. But it's not a good way to burn off extra calories, and it's not a good way to lose fat whatsoever, right? Now, I do think that doing the right kind of exercise, which I talk about frequently, is a very useful tool to stay lean long term, right? And you might be thinking, Dr. Joe, you just said exercise is not a good way to lose fat. How could it be a good tool to stay lean? Well, exercise doesn't necessarily directly burn a ton of calories, but exercise can help you build muscle, and muscle is an important component of your basal metabolic rate. Remember I mentioned that your BMR accounts for 60 to 70% of the calories that you burn? Well, your muscle mass is an important component of that basal metabolic rate. And if you exercise with an intent to build muscle and improve strength, you can very realistically over time improve your basal metabolic rate and improve your energy expenditure. Right? Now, people will argue with me on this and say, Dr. Joey, that's not true because an extra pound of muscle only really burns another 6 to 10 calories per day. And that's true, right? So if you're thinking about it, it's like, man, a pound of muscle only burns 6 calories. Like, it's a pretty low number. But I think that this argument is flawed in many ways. Let me explain what I mean. First off, nobody's just adding 1 pound of muscle, right? Let's say you're new to training and you start training for a good 2 to 3 years. You put on like 10 pounds of muscle. That's an additional 60 to 100 calories burned per day at rest. I think it's really important to mention this. At rest. That's without doing anything, right? So most people gain weight really slowly over years. Nobody's gaining like 50 pounds in a month or anything like that. And I think the data actually shows that on average, people only overeat by about like 20 calories above maintenance. And now this whole argument is a little skewed too, because it's usually not like 20 calories per day. It's usually around the holidays that we really overeat and around special occasions. And then that just adds up year after year. But on average, we're really only overeating by about 20 calories per day, even though about 40 to 50% of our population is obese. So adding 10 pounds of muscle and burning an extra 60 to 100 calories per day at rest is really beneficial, right? And if we think about that number and then we multiply it by 7, that can be up to an additional 700 calories per week, which could be, going out with your family to have some ice cream or having an extra slice of pizza every single week, and it not adversely affecting your weight in any way because you're burning those extra calories through increases in your basal metabolic rate. Now, here is where I think that this whole argument of like, it's only 6 calories per day is even more flawed, is that we're only thinking about how many calories muscle burns at rest. But here's the thing, if you add 5 to 10 pounds of muscle to your frame, you're gonna feel way better. You're gonna have way more energy. Your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, will probably go up because you're gonna move more throughout the day. On top of that, if you are exercising, you're going to be lifting heavier weights. You're going to be doing more intense workouts. So you're going to burn more calories through exercise as well if you have more muscle because your workouts are going to be more difficult. So it's not just the fact that additional muscle will, burn an extra 6 calories at rest. It's like, yes, you're burning an additional 6 calories at rest. You're burning some more calories through your non-exercise activity thermogenesis because you feel better, you have more energy, you're moving more throughout the day. You're burning slightly more calories through exercise as well. You probably burn a little bit more through the thermic effect of food because now your metabolism is higher and you're burning more calories. So you're eating a little bit more food, which means that the thermic effect of food also go ups. But in general, burning muscle is a really good strategy to increase your energy expenditure overall. It's just not a direct effect of like, I exercise and burn 300 calories. So now I've burnt an extra 300 calories and I can eat an extra 300 calories. It's really a latent effect. It's like investing, right? When you invest in the stock market, like you're not really going to see massive returns in a month or a year, or even 2 to 3 years. It's really going to take 10, 15, 20 years, but like it starts to compound, and then you're making a ton of money without really doing much, right? It's the same with building muscle, focusing on resistance training. That's why literally with all of our clients here at Fit for Life Academy, the primary modality of exercise that we encourage and we recommend and we coach around is resistance training with an emphasis on muscle growth and improving body composition. And then when it comes to nutrition, yes, we focus on fat loss, but we focus on improving the quality of the diet overall. So it supports recovery, it supports muscle growth, it supports improvements in body composition. So people actually have an easier time staying lean and muscular, and it doesn't feel like you always have to do more cardio and eat less to lose an extra 5 pounds, because that's not a long-term strategy and it's not a sustainable strategy. And overall, it's just not a strategy that's going to get you to the goals that you want to. So to quickly recap everything, no, you don't need to burn off all of the calories that you eat through food. You actually burn the majority of calories throughout the day without exercise, right? Your BMR, your NEAT, the thermic effect of food. As long as you're within your appropriate caloric limit, you're good. Exercise is not a really effective way to burn off calories and to lose fat. It is an effective strategy to stay lean long term, specifically if you're training with an emphasis on muscle growth and strength, because muscle contributes to your basal metabolic rate and positively contributes to your total daily energy expenditure as well. I hope you found this episode helpful, and if you did, again, please take a second to rate the podcast and leave a review. I'm going to keep begging you till you do it, because it really does help me out, and share it with a friend as well. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll catch you in next week's episode. Peace.